Your life as a Roman gladiator. Slave, you're 19 years old, chained in the hold of a slave ship bound for Rome in the year 70 AD, when a man in fine robes walks the line of captives, sizing up muscle and bone the way a butcher sizes up cattle. He's not buying farmhands, he's buying fighters. You were a soldier once captured in a border war you barely remember the cause of. Now you're cargo. The man buys you for a fair price, not the highest, not the lowest, just enough to mean you're worth training, not worth mourning if you die in your first fight. You're taken to a ludus, a gladiator school. Its high walls built less to keep enemies out than to keep you in. You're learning your first lesson. Freedom didn't end when you were captured. It ends now, behind these walls. The lanista who runs the school greets new arrivals with a speech you'll hear repeated by every guard, every trainer, every other gladiator who survived long enough to mock you for not knowing it yet. You will swear the gladiator's oath, to be burned, bound, beaten, and killed by the sword if your masters demand it. You sign, not because you want to, because refusing means death without even the chance to fight for your life. Training starts before sunrise. Wooden swords first, heavier than steel, meant to build muscles that real blades will later test. Your trainer, a former gladiator himself, corrects your stance with a wooden rod across your shoulders whenever you slip. Pain becomes instruction. You learn fast. Meals come on schedule, more food than you'd ever eaten as a soldier. Barley, beans, dried fruit. You're confused at first. Then you realize you're not being cared for. You're being fed like livestock fed for slaughter. Strong gladiators put on a better show. Dead gladiators waste the lanista's investment before they've turned a profit. You're learning your second lesson. Your life has value now, just not the kind you want. Months pass. You share cramped quarters with dozens of other gladiators, slaves like you, prisoners of war, condemned criminals, and strangely a handful of free men who volunteered for this life, chasing fame or escaping debt. You can't understand why anyone would choose this. Not yet. A bond forms anyway. You eat together, train together, bleed together. The other fighters become something close to family, the kind of family forged by men who know any one of them might die for the crowd's entertainment next week. You learn the names of the dead before you learn most of the living. The ludus doesn't pause for mourning. Another body fills the gap within days. At 20, you fight for the first time. The arena is louder than anything you've ever experienced. Tens of thousands of voices screaming for blood before a single sword is drawn. You stand opposite a man you've trained beside for months, sharing meals, sharing pain, and now ordered to try to kill him. The crowd doesn't care about your friendship. They came for a show. You fight. Your hands shake less than you expected. Months of drilling override fear in ways you didn't know were possible. The fight ends with your opponent on the ground, your blade at his throat, and the crowd roaring for a verdict. The sponsor of the games gives the signal, mercy. Your former training partner lives. You're learning your third lesson. Survival in this life isn't about hating your enemy. It's about performing well enough that someone with power decides you're worth keeping around. Word spreads through the ludus about gladiators who win the crowd's love. The famous ones get nicer cells, better food, even fan letters scratched onto wax tablets by admirers outside the walls. Some gladiators, against every expectation, become celebrities. Wealthy women request their company. Children mimic their fighting stances in the streets. You realize the paradox you've stepped into? Rome despises you as the lowest class of person in the empire, denied burial rights in respectable cemeteries, treated as barely human in daily life. And yet, when you step into that arena, tens of thousands of those same Romans scream your name like you're a god. At 22, you win enough fights that your name starts appearing on advertisements painted on city walls, announcing upcoming games. People place bets on whether you'll live or die. Some root for you, some root against you. None of them know you. None of them care to. You start understanding something dark about the arena. The crowd isn't watching a man. They're watching a story they've already decided the ending to in their heads. You're just there to perform it. At 24, a fight goes wrong. Your opponent gets lucky. A stray blow opens a deep gash across your thigh before you can react. You finish the fight anyway, forcing yourself through pain that should have ended things. You win. But the wound festers despite the ludus's rudimentary infirmary, and for weeks you're not sure if infection will succeed where your opponent failed. You survive. Barely. The scar never fully fades. You're learning your fourth lesson. The arena doesn't care how skilled you are. Luck kills as easily as a worse fighter would. At 26, after years of victories, the sponsor hosting the games makes an announcement that stops your world for a moment. He's decided to free you. Not every fighter gets this chance. Most don't survive long enough to be considered. But you've won enough, entertained enough, and the sponsor wants to be remembered as generous. He pays your purchase price to the lanista and hands you a wooden sword, the rudis, the symbol of your freedom. You stare at it the way you once stared at the chains on the slave ship. Disbelief feels strangely similar whether the news is the worst of your life or the best. You're free. No collar, no lanista, no oath binding you to the sword. But freedom outside the ludus isn't simple. You don't know how to be anything except a gladiator. The crowd that once cheered your fights forgets you within a season, moving on to the next rising fighter with a sword and a story. Some freed gladiators return to the arena anyway, signing new contracts as free men, chasing the only fame and purpose they've ever known. You almost do the same. Instead, you use what little money you've saved to open a small training school of your own, teaching new recruits the skills that kept you alive. Not as a lanista exploiting desperate men, but as something closer to a mentor who understands exactly what they're walking into. At 35, you watch a young recruit step into the arena for his first fight, the same way you once did, hands shaking less than expected, training overriding fear. You don't know if he'll survive his first season. Most don't. But you taught him everything you wish someone had taught you: how to read an opponent's stance, how to make the crowd believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. How to survive long enough that someone someday might decide your life is worth more than the show. You spent years as property, as entertainment, as a name on a betting slip that strangers screamed for or against. But in the end, you became something the arena never planned for. A man who walked out alive and made sure a few others did too. So you survived one of history's deadliest professions. But don't get comfortable. Click the next video and discover your life as a witch trial suspect, where the only crime you need to commit is making the wrong person afraid of you.